Imina Trenta Shetina Legislature in Guam is back from recess, and before we left, colleagues, we had to reset the mics. We were with Minority Leader Senator Frank Blas, who I think wanted to do an amendment, and I'm going to ask Minority Leader, you still have the floor. I understand you want to introduce an amendment, so you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, my discussion was basically the succession of the line of authority for the CEO that's being established by this legislation, and the concern that with regard to if the CEO is going to be hired by the board, but then has to report directly to the director, what then is the role of the director of the Department of Public Health? And I think to be able to resolve that, I'm going to refer to page 5, lines 6 through 11. Okay, and it starts line 6, the overall management, budgeting, cash, and property accounting, and
The mics are out. Can we'll take a moment's recess. Emina 37 na legislature in Guam is back from recess. Colleagues, I do apologize. We are having technical difficulties. The audio team have said that they've reset the mics and everything is going good now. So I will yield back to Minority Leader. Your mic is still not working?
Test. Now it is.
Okay, you may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. So with regard to the concern that I had here with is proposing an amendment found on page 5, line 6 through 11, that basically reads, the overall management, budgeting, cash, and property accounting, and operating oversight of all regional health centers shall be exercised by the Director of the Department of Public Health and Social Services, to whom the Bureau head reports to, namely the Chief Public Health Officer of the Division of Public Health. And so basically the amendment that I propose here is so that there is no, it's whether or not the director has the authority, and in this case it doesn't, then the necessity for that line, for that sentence is not necessary. So my amendment is to strike out that language found in page 5, lines 6 through 11.
Thank you very much, Minority Leader. Colleagues, again, the amendment should be in front of you, and it's striking out, starting with the word "the," all the way down to line 11, on line 6, and all the way down to 11 at public health, period, close quote. That was a motion to delete. Anyone else wishing to speak on this amendment? Anyone wanting to speak on the amendment? If not, is there an objection? Would you like to speak, Senator Joe? You are recognized at this time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With the other, as we strike out the director, because the understanding is that this function is all federally funded. When the grant was applied for and is being used, what happens to the grant when the authority was with the director then? I'm just very curious, because it's not something that we would have to fund. Maybe, I don't know if you can answer it or the author of the bill can answer this. When we're dealing with federal money, which this whole program is run by federally funded, that's my understanding. When you strike the person that applied for the grant, what happens to the grant? And how do you, I mean, there's a lot of coordination when you're dealing in money, especially federal money. How does it go backwards and say, hey, United States government, you know, I applied it then, but I've been taken out of the loop. How can we fix it? There's a lot of mechanism, and a lot of these things need to be in writing, because if we start moving into money, I want to make sure we protect the money that we have today.
Senator San Augustine, I'm going to yield that question to either or, whoever wants to speak first. I yield to you, Speaker, if you want to, and then yield to Frank as the author of the amendment.
Yes, that's a very good question. So there was overlap. The amendments to the bill on page 4 also highlight that one of the very specific testimonies and requests from this new board members was that they be given, that the authority be squarely granted to them to apply for federal grants. And but you're correct, it was public health that was managing the grants. There continues to be overlap. So even with these laws, this board enters into an MOU with the Department of Public Health. And because it's under public health, the hiring is still going to be done through DOA, like a line agency does. And so all of that is set in conformance with the civil service requirements. So yes, there's a little overlap, but we are newly exclusively allowing the CEO, the new governing board to be the one to receive and apply for the grants.
Thank you.
In an MOU with the director regarding, all other government of Guam requirements.
Thank you, Speaker. Minority Leader, would you like to yield also to that, or?
Mine still works.
We are having microphone difficulties.
Madam Speaker, before the author of the amendment speaks, I'd like to just comment, because I understand where the author of the bill is coming from. There's an overlapping. Fine. The key is you have a current grant. How is that protected by changing the laws? And has there been official communication? I'm not talking about, yeah, we talked about it, they spoke about it. Show me the paper so we know how we're tracking the money. Because when something starts falling through the crack, all we're going to say is, well, this body approved it. I'll look at you like, doesn't work that way. Let's make sure we're clean. We walk away. Because I have no problem with the bill. I like that CEO. I like that changing this. I have no problem with it. I just want to make sure that we don't lose out on anything. If it's in writing, the director says, yeah, we'll have an MOU, MOI, or whatever you want to choose to name it. Show the writing. Because this bill is moving forward. When we vote for this, there's nothing in place. I just want to make sure we're protected. That's all. I support the bill. Okay?
Thank you. I was yielding to the minority leader, but I think the speaker had a point of information. Do you have a point of information? And then I'm going to call a break so we can have the minority leader say.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to point out, so as an addition to the bill and the regulations, or yes, there are rules and regs that also apply to this law. There is it's called a co-applicant agreement between the community health centers and the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services. This co-applicant agreement gets approval by HRSA so that everybody's duties are outlined. And when it comes to financial management, it's pretty much DOA. So they have a whole page or more in here about DOA's responsibilities in financial management, the director's responsibilities in financial management, and the CEO and the board's responsibilities in financial management. But the accounting, procurement, audits, internal control systems, and including the federal, local, and program income funds is with DOA primarily. Yes, with, of course, the CEO determines how the money should be spent, but all of it goes through DOA.
Thank you, Speaker. Senator San Augustine had the floor, yielding to Senator Blas. I am going to take a moment's recess to make sure his microphone is working. Moment's recess. Can we? Iminachanta Shetina Legislature in Guam is back from recess. We're going to try this again. Minority Leader, you are still recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I appreciate the dialogue that was happening, but if we can dispense of the amendment. I know that there is the concern with regard to that, but and I do have questions in mind with the concerns brought on by the good gentleman from Jigo. However, if we can dispense with the amendment first, then we can, because I'm not done yet.
On the motion, is there any objection? Are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Minority Leader, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, along those lines, if you go down to page 8, page 11, line 8. This was reference to the officers and the meeting requirements. And line 8, it says the director or the division head or both shall be present on all council GCH CBD meetings. Do we want to say them or the CEO?
I'm going to take that as an inquiry. Speaker Chalayi, would you like to answer that?
No, this wasn't, yes, I will. And this was intended to be the Director of Public Health. So again, the community health centers, although they have a governing board, they still operate under public health. Public health is supposed to assist them. So yeah, this is to mandate that the director or the division head be present. The CEO, of course, will be there because of their role. But this is in...
Okay, well, along those lines, ma'am, I can understand that we recognize who the director will be. But then when you say, or division head of where? Because if we effectively took the division head out from the chief public health officer, which division head are you talking about here?
Speaker Therese.
Thank you. Trying to remember the name of the division, but this is under the Bureau of Primary Care Services, where this program is established, and that bureau belongs to a division of Public Health and Social Services. I think it's the Division of Public Health. So public health is divided into, a public health and a something else, maybe social service. Sorry, I don't have the organization chart, but I believe it's a division of public health. But it's under the Bureau of Primary Care, and that bureau, there are several other bureaus underneath that division. Division's high up, sorry, it's not referring to the board at all. Yeah.
Thank you, Speaker. Minority Leader, does that help?
And for the purposes of trying to be able to address the ambiguity that are in some of the places, that's why I said, the assumption here is the director means the director of public health or the division head. There are a number of different division heads. And so I think that it's, for purposes of clarity, we have to make sure that it's consistent with the rest of the statute or the rest of the section of law that we're trying to fix. Madam Speaker, now going back to the concern raised by the good gentleman from Jigo with regards to the CEO, it does mention here that it is the board's responsibility to be able to hire, fire, and evaluate the performance of the CEO, but where here is the establishment of the criteria or what they should be looking for in the CEO, and what is the salary of the CEO? How's that going to be established?
Would you like to yield, Speaker?
Yes, please.
Sure, and these positions are established already under DOA. So the criteria, I'm sure, is listed there. It's not random. They're not doing it randomly. In fact, the recruitment process, I think they're line agencies, so they follow DOA. It's just that decision, and they may even get the recommendations of DOA, but the ultimate decision is up to them, the board. But the recruitment process is civil service, so it goes through DOA. And it's set by position scale.
Minority Leader?
So, Madam Chair, if the good author can yield to another question, so it is our understanding that there is already there is a position with a salary that is within the staffing pattern, I'm assumably with the Department of Public Health and Social Services.
Speaker Therese?
I don't want to assume or guess, and I don't know exactly, but even in their contract, they list out the responsibilities of the Department of Administration, and they say that the recruitment of the CEO shall be through the DOA human resources process. And then Public Health participates in the interview together with the board, but that the ultimate decision is the board. And then the board does the discipline. This is all in their contract that they've made between DOA, Public Health now, and the board.
Madam Speaker,
And so the personnel, they follow the personnel rules of the government of Guam. Yeah.
Madam Speaker, and I bring these questions up, these concerns up, just so that, because I don't want to leave the board nor Public Health hanging with regards to who's got what responsibility and who's going to pay for what. And I appreciate that, and I understand that the good author here, there's no certainty on whether or not, this position exists nor does the salary. Again, if once this bill goes out, it becomes law, and then when it becomes law, okay, what is the criteria? What is the salary? What is the responsibility of this CEO? We got to make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's before this, this legislation leaves our house.
Point of information, Madam Speaker.
Say your point of information.
Yeah, let me just go back. So there is no ambiguity in this program. So we're amending 3803. Let me just see if we amend 3804 in this statute too. We didn't amend 3804 because 3804 states very clearly that the CEO position is established. It's been established for years. They've been hiring for years, or they were able to do it for years. It says the salary shall be based upon the national standard of community health center chief executive officers of federally qualified health centers in the U.S., subject to availability of funds and included in all subsequent budgets. It's but it's a DOA process, so it's established. It's not at all in question. There's no question as to their ability to hire. They've been able to do it. It's just a question of who gets to terminate, I think, was really their dispute. So it's even established by law and DOA process.
Thank you, Speaker. Minority Leader, you still have the floor. Minority Leader, could you try, thank you.
Sorry, my mic's not working. Thank you, appreciate it. And again, it's not my intent to be able to poke holes, and I just want to make sure that all the holes are filled before we move forward on this. And I appreciate the the information that was provided by the author of the bill, I'm comfortable with that. I just want to make sure that that's taken care of. Okay. There is one more. Hang on, I got to go back to my. Yeah. And I'm sure that this next one, ma'am, is just a matter of it's a typographical error. It's found on page 11, line 10. It says 7, and then in parentheses 47. So again, it's a type. I'm sure it's a typographical error, but it just needs to be. Just,
On a motion to.
If I may
ask-
yield, Madam Speaker, that the 4 is crossed out, but it goes straight across the line of the 4. It's hard to see. So the 4 is crossed off, even the number 4 is crossed out in the middle of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Didn't look like that here. It looks like it was a 4. Just wanted to make sure. But Madam Speaker, again, I support and I stand in support of the intent of this legislation. I just want to make sure that if we're going to provide this power and this responsibility to the board, much less now to the CEO, we want to make sure that there's no ambiguity and there's the clear distinction in the line of authority. Because prior to the proffer of the amendment, you had a chairman, CEO, who was going to be hired by the board, but had to report all of his actions, and the management control was still under the Director of Public Health. When, if you look at the responsibility of the board, they have that responsibility as well. So there was basically a overlap with responsibility, and I want to make sure that was clear. Again, I stand in support of the intent of the legislation, and I'm hoping, as it was pointed out by the Senator from Jigo, is that in this process, that the grant program in itself, there is that understanding now that they in that grant they pay for this position. Because that's what it appears like here, and unless I'm wrong, but that's what it appears like. And I just want to make sure that moving forward, they can move forward and be able to bring in their CEO and move things, and finally get that urgent care facility, down in Inalon up and running. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Minority Leader. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, on the main motion, Senator Joe Snogstein, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I'm just trying to find the page. I think legal needs to make the correction. The identified chairman of finance, the report goes to. That's been long gone. Chairman of finance is the chairman of appropriation and operations. Got to change the title. I mean, maybe legal can do that correction, and if the author would.
On the
agree to
motion
that.
to ask legal to make technical changes to.
That's correct. I just want to make
On
sure.
that motion, are there any objections? No objections. Motion carries. Thank you. Senator, you still have the floor.
Other than that, I'm in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, Speaker Talai, Senator Barnett, I will recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in full support of the bill. I think it's a great bill, and it was frustrating to sit in on the public hearing for this measure and to hear this the members of this advisory council talk about how frustrated they were, because as you guys know in this hall, the state of our island's healthcare has been one of the main conversations we've been having since the beginning of the term. And while we were engaging in our debates and discussions about where to build the new hospital, one of the things that became a big part of this conversation was the lack of services, healthcare services for the people in the South. And as someone who grew up in the South, and I'm sure many of my colleagues here can share the same experience, these community health centers had their heyday. I remember we would go on field trips. They would offer many services that quite simply they don't offer anymore. And I'm not sure where the disconnect started happening, but it's clear that we've seen the services offered to our people at these community health centers being whittled down over the years for whatever reason. And what was frustrating was hearing this advisory council talk about how they wanted to do things that they used to do, talk about how frustrated they were that we weren't doing the urgent care anymore. And this is something that our leaders who came before us thought about. They thought about putting in these pieces of our healthcare puzzle to address the needs of the people in the South, to address the needs of the people in the North with the Northern Community Health Center. But again, over the years, the availability of services have whittled down. And some services have been offered at other locations with public health, and some services have never been offered again at all. And we heard testimony from members of this advisory council who, because they're an advisory council, they're limited to basically doing exactly what it sounds like, giving advice to the director of public health about what they want to see in these community health centers, what types of programs they think are important to the people. But sadly, that advice, for whatever reason, was going in one ear and out the other. And so I commend the author for getting to the root of exactly what the issue is and cutting through all the bureaucratic, political red tape to really attack the essence of this problem at its heart. And that is that we need to change what this advisory council can do, make them a governing council, and then watch them run with it. There's a bunch of great people who provided testimony, and one thing that really struck home for me was they have the passion to make the changes that are needed to help shore up our island's many healthcare shortfalls. And we're not just talking about the dental outreach or other services that aren't available to the tune that they used to be. We're also talking about important critical services that have fallen short. Services, prenatal care for expectant mothers. We are part of this family, the greatest democracy in all of the world, the United States of America, but sadly our infant mortality rate comparatively measures up with third world countries. And to hear some of the testimony, relative to this bill and other bills that deal with public health, to hear that we offer those services, and then when we cast public health asunder to rent offices here, there, and everywhere all over the island, sadly we weren't able to pick up the level of services. And the pandemic, of course, played its part. And so what we have seen is expectant mothers who aren't getting the prenatal care that they need. And you ask anybody in healthcare, that is a crucial component to ensuring our most vulnerable, the babies on this island, can survive, past 3 years old. And that's a huge problem that we don't talk enough about. And so by changing this advisory council to a governing council and allowing them to work with their CEO to make the changes that they deem necessary, that our people really deserve, here in 2024, I think it's a great idea, and I just ask my colleagues to support it. And I know there was a lot of debate and discussion about the technicalities in the bill, and I just wanted to get up and speak about what I believe is at the heart of this measure, and that is to restore services to our people where they can access them, where they are needed, and to restore the kind of services that are simply not available in the South and obviously in the North. So again, I commend the author. I'd ask to be included as a co-sponsor of the measure as well. Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, Senator Sabina, I'll recognize you at this time.
Stu Masi, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this amendment, and I commend the author for working hard to ensure that our community health centers are functional. In speaking with mayors, there was definitely a frustration that they were unable to receive grants for our community to be able to access health care. And our community centers in their villages. I think this is so critical that we need to work very hard to increase access to health care. And if this is one measure that does that, I am full support of it. And, you know, it also frustrates me to see the dysfunction within our government. And changing our laws is one step that we can do that and to undo that. The other thing that's so important about this bill is being HRSA compliant. HRSA brings a lot of benefits. One of those benefits is to allow disadvantaged communities to attract doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals by helping to subsidize their tuition. And I fully support this measure because Guam is one of those communities that are disadvantaged, and we need to become HRSA compliant. And so I thank the good author, and I also ask to be a co-sponsor as well. Stu Masi.
Thank you, Senator Paris. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, Speaker Chalayi, you may close.
Sidus Masi, and I want to thank the previous speakers and those who raised questions during this debate on this bill, and those who recognize that really we were looking to our community health centers to really make a significant impact on our communities. They were built in the vision of those before us and with HRSA's assistance, and I believe that we were thriving at a certain period in these health centers, very much thriving. We were getting out into the community and delivering the primary care services and the urgent care services and the maternal care services, prenatal services, all of that we were delivering in these northern and southern community health centers. And I'm so grateful that those before us decided to place one in Alahan, in Dedido. And in theory, and we've seen in practice, these will very much supplement what the central public health could do, what our hospitals could do. Our hospitals are not able to be at their peak if we cannot get these community health centers to function at their peak. And so this bill is intended to do just that. And I just want to remind everybody, so they were established to provide quality, comprehensive primary health care services to the residents of the southern villages of Guam and the residents of the northern villages of Guam. They are authorized to hire CEO, contract to get doctors and other professionals that they need. They were mandated by law in creating the health center to provide urgent care service. And as my previous colleagues said, we heard so many complaints about lack of urgent care. Well, that's a failure, for sure. But it's not a failure in the law. It's a failure in the practice, in the management. The law says They will take care of conditions that are non-emergency in nature. Emergency are those illnesses that may result in the loss of life or limb if not treated immediately. Those should go to GMH. Everything else, these community health centers were supposed to be able to take care of. They were supposed to have basic pharmacy, radiology, laboratory, and patient transport to move cases that require a higher level of patient care management. And we heard about the incredible failure, lack of ambulances in the southern villages, and in actually many villages that we currently are experiencing. That's not a failure of the law, that's a failure again of the management, of the maintenance, of the priorities. The facility was supposed to operate regular hours, of course, but the urgent care was supposed to operate weekly from 6 to 11 p.m. and extend as the demand arises. We know for sure, I mean, we gave them a big break after COVID, everything was in shambles, but we are not operating at our capacity. We are not operating even to meet the needs of the people. And so I'm very much hoping that passage of this bill will give this board the tools that they need. And I'm very grateful that it seems in the process that we have public health has been, and public health, the Community Health Center Board, and DOA have all been lined up, signed off on the contract pursuant to these authorities to manage these community health centers at their peak. They were allowed to establish, one of my colleagues asked me in the break about fees. They are allowed to establish fees. So they get grant money. They also are allowed to establish fees for their services. They were also authorized by previous legislatures to have a revolving fund where the fees, get paid into, and then they get to spend them to pay for the services that they are providing. These fees are set by AAA. The fees, according to the law in previous legislatures past, must give discounts to the federal, accordingly to the federal income poverty guideline. And it specifies if individuals fall below the federal poverty guidelines, they shall apply for MIP and other medically subsidized programs. And so they are able, and they have done a very good job. I think that's actually not one of their issues like it was at GMH for a while, is their billing. So they are working very hard at these community health centers with the few resources that they have. But after the HRSA visit, after this law's passed, with their new MOA in place, I believe that I'm expecting to see all services ramped up as much as possible without any interference. So that's our hope. And I want to thank those, again, in support of the bill. I want to thank Senator Barnett, Senator Brown, who attended the hearing the entire time. It was quite long because we had, I think, every member of that advisory council there. And they had even told us stories that I wasn't even aware of about how their funds were taken from them. And so that's another thing, and I hope we never see that again, because it's like we get on, our community tells us we don't have enough services, and then we, make these agencies unable to do their jobs by taking away funds that are dedicated for that purpose. But I'd like to make a motion to add co-sponsors Senator Barnett, Senator Brown, Senator Perez, Senator San Augustine, Senator Blas, and Senator Taitakui, and all other senators, Madam Speaker.
Yes, sounds great. On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. And on the motion?
Yes, Jesus Masa again to my colleagues, and I'd like to renew my motion to place this bill on the third reading.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Colleagues, we are now on, we're going to take a second's recess so I can confer with Speaker.
We're back from recess. We are now on Bill number 212-37LS. Senator Lujan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and good afternoon, colleagues. Madam Speaker, I motion to place Bill 212-37LS as amended by the Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture in third reading, and I would like to speak on it.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and colleagues, Bill 212-37LS, again as amended by Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture, sponsored by myself and Senator Duenas, an act to authorize the transfer of 707 square meter portion of lot 5173-NEW-3 from the Chamorro Land Trust Commission to the Office of the Mayor of Tamuning. In 2017, Madam Speaker, the office of the Tamuning Mayor's Office desired lot 5173-NEW-2-R2 in the municipality of Tamuning, with an area approximately 24,688 plus or minus square meters, or 6.10 acres, and a 707 square meter portion of lot 7173-NEW-3 in the municipality of Tamuning. As shown, of course, you may have that on scheme M19-S002, Exhibit C. To be under the control of the mayor of municipality of Tamuning, to create and improve recreational parks and fields, and diligently sought private partners to assist and facilitate in the creation and installation of these recreational fields. Lot 5173-NEW-2-R2 in the municipality of Tamuning was successfully transferred pursuant to Public Law 34-89. The desired 707 square meter portion of lot number 5173-NEW-3 is still not under the control of the Office of the Mayor of Tamuning. Upon receiving the transfer request and resolution number 2024-003 from the Mayor of Tamuning and the Municipal Planning Council of Tamuning, and upon discovering that the Chamorro Land Trust Commission approved the transfer via resolution 2018-1, it is necessary to fulfill the Municipal Planning Council's resolution 2024-003 and the Chamorro Land Trust Commission resolution number 2018-01. The Chamorro Land Trust owns lot number 5173-NEW-3 and has agreed pursuant to Chamorro Land Trust resolution number 2018-1 to transfer 707 square meter portion of lot number 5173-NEW-3 to the Office of the Mayor of Tamuning, subject to conditions. This will allow the Office of the Mayor of Tamuning to consolidate the 707 square meter portion of lot number 5173-NEW-3 in the municipality of Tamuning, as shown in scheme number M19-S002, with lot number 5173-NEW-2-R2. The remainder of lot 5173-NEW-3 is used by Lyndon B. Johnson Elementary School. Madam Speaker and colleagues, there is an existing, being used, actually has been being used by the municipality of Tamuning, the mayor's office of Tamuning. There's a small concession there that used to house, I think, a vegetable stand. It still stands there as well. The Municipal Planning Council, the mayor's office, had applied for grants to improve the facility. However, they were denied numerous times because they don't hold title to that particular property, to that particular portion of property that is inclusive of the development of that for that new facility. So, of course, with the conditions were that property cannot be used for other than recreational facilities, and that's what the mayor of Tamuning, mayor and vice mayor of Tamuning, as well as the Municipal Planning Council have in their plans again applying for their grants. So that being said, of course, in the public hearing, the mayor and vice mayor of Tamuning and the Planning Council, as well as the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, had come out and testified in favor of the transfer, as was done in previous resolutions, and then again in a public law back in 34-89, but somehow that portion of property was left out of the transfer. So that being said, in conclusion, again, this act represents a critical step towards land optimization, enhance recreational facilities, and improve quality of life for all residents of Guam. I hope to garner enough support initiative as it aligns with our shared vision for a vibrant and accessible community for all, Madam Speaker. So I ask for the support of my colleagues, and again, once and for all, transfer that piece of property that was left out originally as they transfer the other pieces of property, and we'll be able to have the Municipal Planning Council of Tamuning and the mayor successfully again in their grant application. Hopefully this time they'll be granted because they would be able to have a clear title. With that, Madam Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, Senator Taitui, you are recognized. And then Senator.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this bill. I attended the public hearing, and for full disclosure, I'm a resident of Tamuning, so of course I take great interest in this bill. I know the area that is requested for this to be transferred over to the mayor's office, and many times you see sometimes vendors out there selling food, and I didn't want to make this bill just very restrictive to only sports activities, but anything that would relate to it. So I had asked the mayor, as well as Chamorro Land Trust, that if they would have any objections to allowing the flexibility for the mayor to have vendors there and utilize this money to enhance the area, or even to help assist these sports activities in helping them raise money for their uniforms or whatnot. And we didn't want to restrict it, so I'm glad to see that the amended version of the bill allows that flexibility. In the revisionary clause as well was placed in there that allowed it to also go back to the Chamorro Land Trust in the event it's not used, and then of course that's when it extended out and gave the flexibility for certain activities on that. So I thank the committee chair for making that inclusion. Thank you so much. Madam Speaker, I had also requested from Mr. Birch to provide a resolution, an updated version one. It seemed like it was maybe over 5 years ago that the last resolution was a while ago. I mean, it's not something that was 1 year or 2 years ago. It was quite some time ago. And of course, directors have changed and those sitting on the board have changed. So I've also requested for that to be provided to us, and I'm glad to see that Chamorro Land Trust went ahead and made those changes. Or not changes, provided that new resolution. And I'm sure all of us have that copy of that new resolution. I believe it's Resolution, Chamorro Land Trust Commission Resolution 2024-002. Now, I also asked for the mayor's office to also provide a resolution from the municipal council as well. And the reason why for this is because they are taking on the responsibility as well as the liability of that area. And I just wanted to make sure they realize that this is something that they are well aware of, that they're responsible for. So I have to ask, because I didn't see it here, ask the author of the legislation if the municipal council, I did speak to the mayor, by the way, and she said that all the council members had agreed to it and there was no objection to it, but I was just wondering if we received that resolution.
We received it. Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. I'll respond to that.
Yeah, Senator Lujan,
Thank-
would you
thank-
yield?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I'll yield to the question. I mean, yes, we did receive a resolution from the Municipal Planning Council of Tamuning. Was there a specific resolution they were asking about? Because I know the council had given us one, but was there a specific clause that you were asking for?
No, not at all, just
Okay,
making
yeah, no,
sure.
we did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did, and as a
Okay.
matter of fact, it's, let me see, resolution number, 2004-003.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that to the author and staying on top of the information that was provided at the public hearing to ensure accountability as well as the liability, which is so important that this council realize they are taking on by inheriting this piece of property. So that being said, I do ask that the author allow me to be a co-sponsor next in line as a resident of Tamuning. So other than that, I thank you for the opportunity, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, Senator Dueñas, you are recognized.
Cedros Masi, Madam Chair, and I certainly rise in full support of Bill 212-37. And I thank Senator Lujan for offering me the opportunity to be a co-sponsor on this legislation. Madam Speaker, I'm a lifelong resident of Tamuning. It's my stomping grounds as a child. And this area is very special to many, many residents and many generations of individuals from Tamuning. It is actually the original home of the Tamuning Eagles, which later was relocated. The youth football team, actually multiple ages in terms of playing the game of football as a sport. Also baseball, basketball, tennis courts. You see everything in this particular area of the municipality, Madam Speaker. Back in those days, I remember a lot of the businesses actually sponsored baseball teams and baseball tournaments. I played under the coach Greg Calvo for the duty-free shoppers team of Tamuning. So it is really, even till today, Madam Speaker, all hours of the day, but particularly in the late afternoons, in the evening, and on the weekends, that is one of the most vibrant areas of Tamuning. You see everybody coming together, and like I said, the evenings mostly is for the basketball court. Folks go over and play basketball most of the time, but on the weekends, of course, it's the different sports, particularly softball, baseball, and it's just one of those areas in Tamuning that really has a deep history. In fact, for a while there, it was called Tamuning Lake because it was a low-lying area in a good portion of it, and it used to flood, but then that has been mitigated now. So sometimes during the rainy season, it became Tamuning Lake, and we'd have old telephone poles in there, and we'd play that game where you stand on it and see who can stand the longest by rolling it back and forth. Anyways, that's a long story. That probably didn't need to be added. But I love this place, and I'm glad that the mayor has taken it to this level to be able to incorporate this small piece of property to complete the overall transfer that had taken place. And I agree with the issue of multi-purpose, because we do see it was a very vibrant vegetable stand at one point. A vendor was there doing well. But there's, of course, just always an opportunity because there's so much activity. In fact, right now, I believe there's a small ramen van there that basically serves folks, I guess tourists and locals alike, who go over and might want to grab a bowl of ramen for lunch or for dinner. And so it's really kind of a unique little spot that in between two wonderful schools, LBJ and Tamuning Elementary, that many, I'm sure the council as well, I know several of them as relatives, they have an affection to this piece of property. So it's rightful, I believe, and I know that it completes the area. I think other mayors either had tried or they thought maybe that the resolution was enough and the transfer maybe didn't require a law, but of course we know that not to be true, that this has to be codified. And so as we go forward, I just think this is the right thing to do for the municipality of Tamuning, and particularly those who use this area very, very vibrantly exercising, playing, having fun, and it's a really great time for the community that comes together that wants to utilize that property, and it's very well utilized and very, something that, once again, I said, brings the community together. So thank you, Senator Lujan, for inviting me to be a co-sponsor, and I hope we get the full support of the body to support this measure. Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Sidus Masi. Senator Dueñas. On the bill, Vice Speaker Munya Barnes, you are recognized.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to speak and rise in support of this Bill 212-30 COR, and I want to thank the good author from Tamuning for proffering this legislation. Again, as previously noted by the retiring speakers, this property will be transferred back to the office of the mayor of Tamuning, and the reason for the transferring the lot to the office of the mayor makes it possible even for the mayor and her MPC group to probably look at federal grants to develop the space. And Madam Speaker, as we look at community involvement, as we look at bringing all the residents of Tamuning and even residents from outside who come and play in that area, I think that this would be a win-win for not just the mayor and its and the mayor and the MPC and all that, but literally for all the residents of Tamuning and even the island. I know that there's a reversionary clause that if it's not utilized, then it reverts back to the Chamorro Land Trust, so it just gives it teeth if nothing is materializes. But I know that with all the different activities that the mayor of Tamuning has done and has created, we don't even have to look far. Several weeks ago, you and I were in the village of Tamuning celebrating a really big festivity, and we saw the gym equipment outside in the open air, and people during the ceremony were still utilizing the gym equipment and seeing the community walk around the premises near the mayor's office. You have the tennis court, you have the basketball court, you have the gym, you just have so many things. But when you look at this portion of property and giving it back to the mayor's office so that they can further development, I literally think to try and access even federal funds and grants out there that could be suitable for development and sports and community networking, I think it's a win-win. So I stand and rise in support of this measure, and I'm hoping the good senator from Tamuning who's, related to me, that maybe he can consider me to be a part of this sponsorship. So thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this measure and ask my colleagues to support the same efforts. Sana Masi.
Sana Masi, Vice Speaker. Is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? On the bill. Senator Brown, on the bill, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to comment on this bill. I did want to ask the main sponsor, because again, recognizing that this is land that's actually being taken out of the Chamorro Land Trust inventory, even though some may say 707 square meters is not a lot of land. I certainly understand where it's at, and certainly the benefits that the village of Tamuning will have in having this property included in their existing property inventory so they can expand on the activities that are happening in that part of the village. But I'm also mindful and understanding the imperfections, of course, of the Chamorro Land Trust and its very colorful history that we're still dealing with today. But I just think we should also be mindful in moving forward, and I see that the Chamorro Land Trust certainly did not object to the transfer of this property, but I just think moving forward we need to be mindful with the creation of the Chamorro Land Trust that the intent was never to have the ability, or we should not have the ability, if we truly recognize the significance and importance of the land trust itself, of simply using it as a land bank for us whenever it's convenient with our authorities to go in and take out land from the inventory without addressing compensation. I understand that there is no compensation being paid back to the land trust, but I just wanted to ask clarification of the sponsor with regards to this land, because it is land trust property, certainly until we pass this legislation and it becomes law. But again, I just want to raise that concern and get feedback from him, what the actual position of the commission is or was with regards to this bill. Quite simply because moving forward, I would not want to see land trust land simply something that we can, whenever it's convenient, be able to go in, even though we have the power to do it, because we created the land trust, to go back and simply diminish the amount of property there with no fair compensation to the land trust. So if I could ask Senator Lujan, as the main sponsor of this bill, to respond and clarify to those concerns. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Lujan, would you yield?
Yes, I yield. Yes, thank you, Senator Brown. Yeah, Senator Brown. Yes, actually Director John Birch and I think some of his municipal planning council members had testified in the public hearing as well. They're in full support, and even prior to that, prior in 2018, they had passed a resolution as well, again granting the transfer, the holistic transfer, as I mentioned earlier. But unfortunately, the public law that was passed to transfer the properties, for some reason, left out that 707 square meter property. So back then they agreed in totality that was included, but somehow it was left out. So when they, during the public hearing, they came out and testified as well that they are in support of the transfer. Likewise, again, reiterating what their previous resolution had read in the totality of the transfer. So yes, they were in total agreement.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the clarification. And again, it's just something to be mindful of, because certainly as time goes on, and we understand and know how the original government of Guam lands got transferred to the land trust, but it's just something to
Point
be
of
mindful.
information, Madam Speaker.
Please state your point of information.
Point of information, when we want to talk about the previous law, it's Bill 161-34. I'm the author of that bill, and it became public law number 34-89. We didn't miss out on anything. This is what the mayors asked for. So when you want to talk about the property that we took out of Chamorro Land Trust, what they got in that law is what they asked for. Later on, they figured out they needed the building in the front that was a store. Just want to make sure that was understood. I have a copy of the bill.
Thank you for your point of information, Senator. Senator Brown, you have the floor.
Well, I appreciate Senator San Augustine's point of information, but again, I just simply think we need to be mindful of that. And again, I understand. I probably spent more time dealing with the records of the Chamorro Land Trust than anyone else here. But again, I think we need to be mindful. I mean, we all want a lot of things. I'm sure the mayor's office wanted a lot of things that they would like to put in place for their community in Tamuning, and I think there's no fault with regards to that. But again, even though it's a small sliver of land, it's still 707 square meters that for whatever reason remain within the land trust inventory. And by the action of this bill, we're actually going to transfer that to the Tamuning Mayor's office. So I just think moving forward, we need to collectively, colleagues, be mindful that the land trust is not simply something whenever we choose to, because it's very easy to pass laws, very easy to pass bills that become legislation. But at some point, there's some things that we need to value. And we understand, because we know the challenges the land trust, and trust me, it's hard to stand up and say Chamorro Land Trust when you see the history and the abuse that has happened. But nevertheless, in principle, if we believe that this land is being set aside for the interest and the benefit of the Chamorro people, and then of course with the recent court decision, we know it all has to do with the timing of the 1950 and all that stuff, that maybe those that are also eligible are not entirely Chamorro. I can appreciate all that. But nevertheless, it's just something to be mindful that we should not do anything to diminish the value of the properties that were put in the land trust. And moving forward, certainly the need, and we all know the need for infrastructure, for funding, for opportunities for those families that are eligible to be able to build their homes or to do their agricultural initiatives that they may desire for either their personal consumption or for commercial purposes to earn revenue for their families. It's just something, colleagues, we need to be mindful of. And with that, Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to comment, and certainly thank you to Senator Lujan for providing his response, and I guess Senator San Augustine's point of information. With that, I have no further questions or comments with regards to this bill.
Thank you, Senator Brown. On the main motion on 212, I'll address Speaker Terlahi at this time. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I was anxious to speak on this bill, especially in light of the my previous speaker's comments. And I too am very wary of land being transferred out of the land trust, and was very cautious in reporting this bill out of my committee, and I want to commend the author of the bill for his cooperation and any questions that came up. He was able to follow up with the Tamuning mayor immediately, and we also worked with the Chamorro Land Trust very closely on this. What happened was in 2018, when the Chamorro Land Trust received this request from the mayor of Tamuning and the previous law that was passed by my other colleague from GIGO to give them the baseball fields, the fields back there, they had actually also asked for this, and I'm not sure, well, I'm not sure what they asked for, but that's not the point. The point is that when they asked the Chamorro Land Trust for the property, in their research, the Chamorro Land Trust had decided that this property, this entire lot where we are trying to transfer 707 square meters out of, was, in their opinion, or according to their resolution, used by Lyndon B. Johnson Elementary School. It was mistakenly transferred to the Chamorro Land Trust inventory and the governor's administrative transfer of government land to this commission on February 18, 1994, pursuant to 21 GCA 75104. The lot has been exclusively used by the Department of Education, and the elementary school rests on the entire property and should be fully administered by the Department of Education. So if you look at the maps, this 707 square meters is being taken out of the DOE well, not the DOE property, technically the CLTC property, but where the schools are. So I was concerned then, not so much about the land trust, but about the schools. And I have tried repeatedly to get confirmation from the schools. They did not attend the hearing. We invited them. They did not. And after the hearing, sent a couple letters at least, to the Department of Education to get confirmation that they did not need this property for access to the elementary schools. So they've not responded, so we found that they did not object. And the CLTC is very much in favor because these lots are being used by the schools or were being used as baseball fields, and they did not want to use it for any other purpose. They did ask for the reversionary clause to be put in, which we did. And we also added in the restrictions that were placed in the prior law for the larger parts of the sports fields. And that includes restrictions that, that's the purpose that they're being transferred for, was for recreation, and that the mayor and Tamuning was going to come up with rules and regulations that govern the use and access to these recreational facilities, so that we don't get any complaints later that, they're being discriminated or something like that. So they will come up with rules and regs and apply those fairly across the board. And the mayor and the sponsor of the bill, in their introduction of the bill, did say that they are trying to get access to federal funding or federal grants to enhance this facility, not only for the Tamuning, Tumon, and Harmon residents, but for all the people of Guam. So we're not mandating that, of course, but that's the intent of this law. It's like it's being transferred from one entity to another for purposes of, shoring up these facilities for recreational purposes, but that they were going to be used fairly across the board for all of our island under the stewardship of the Tamuning mayor. And so I just wanted to put that on the record as well, and I share the sentiments of the previous speaker regarding transfers out of the trust. So, but I believe in this situation, if they are going to be used as recreational fields, that is consistent with the use by the Guam Department of Education at this point, as long as access is not impeded. Situs Masi.
Buen Pobetsu, Speaker Tulai. Anyone else on the main motion? Senator Joseph Augustine, I want to acknowledge you at this time. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to ask the author if he yield to a question.
Please state your question.
On the 707 meters of land, is that in reference to the building in the front that was used as a store?
Senator Lujan, would you like to yield?
I'll yield to the question. Yes, I'm sorry? Can you repeat the question again?
Is the front of where the property's at, Nate? Is that where the store was at?
Yes.
Is it still a store?
No, no, actually, it was a store. It's no
Please
longer a
address
store.
the podium.
Thank you.
Senator Jeff,
Madam
if you'd like to yield to the question.
Yes, I'll yield to the question. Yes, it was a store. This is closed down. It is being used now the mayor's using it for storage at this point.
Thank you, Senator Lujan. Senator San Agustin, you still have the floor. Does that address your inquiry?
A little bit. I just would like to remind our colleagues that there's only two of us. The speaker and I were the only two that are still listed as co-sponsors of the original bill of Public Law 34-89 that was passed in 2017. And I stand in support of the bill, but my only concern is that that's where the building's at. And at one point, I think my staff told me that it's used like a learning center or something, and I'm like, okay, we're going to use it to help out the sports. I'm only concerned is that I'm in support of using it for sports. That's why we first introduced Public Law 34-89. I'm concerned about that it's just to add, then so be it. Hopefully they're successful. But my concern is that where we at today with what we had on Public Law 34-89, have they adopted the rules and regulations that the speaker mentioned earlier? Because I would expect that, and maybe I'll introduce an amendment to add to this bill, that they continue to adopt the rules and regulations and how they're going to manage that. Because back then, I know that the sports folks I spoke to, they were using that, and then at a certain point, they were denied access, there was a delay, all the reasons for why it didn't move. Now it's getting back on track. Great. I just spoke to them, they said, no, now we got access, we're using it for what it was intended. So I just want to make sure that when they do get it, there are rules and regulations on how they're going to do it. Because when they do apply for a grant, Madam Speaker, if you don't have any rules and regulations, it's pretty much I'm applying because I want to get the soccer field like they do up in Tumuning. Oh, whoopie-doo. You know, there's many ways to do this. But create the rules and regulations as intended from the bigger portion so that it just blends in with the rest of the property. So that, because if we go back to Public Law 34-89, unfortunately, one part we missed out, we should have put a number of years of the reversionary clause, because when are they going to get their grant? When are they going to build their facility? When are they going to do what they said they were going to do? It's 5 years, or no, wait, 2017, 2024? It's the 7 years. So bloody down grant time. I just want to make sure that whatever's going to happen to Tumuning is successful. Some of my colleagues are from Tumuning, great. I have plenty of family in Tumuning. And that's what they pursued then. That's what I supported then. And I still support the intent of this bill. I just want to make sure they're in fact going to do what they say they're going to do. Put it in writing. Be in compliance with Public Law 34-89, because I'll support this bill. Give you additional property, but I just want to make sure that it's done right. And that we're just not giving it and then it's going to sit. Then what is used as storage becomes a store to fund what they're doing. Let's make sure we got this right. Thank you, Madam Speaker. But I am in support of the bill. Thank you.
Senator San
Point of
Agustin,
information, Madam Chair.
I will go ahead and address your point of information, and then I'll go back to the question. Yes, Senator
I just wanted
Duenas.
to interject here as having about 51 years of experience. This piece of property has always been the access to the field and a contiguous property. It has never been, if you know, the LBJ parking lot, paved area, everything else is all a standalone in terms of servicing LBJ. In fact, the LBJ kids and the Tumuning Elementary children use those fields. There was a Since I'm the co-sponsor, I'll go next to Jesse Lujan. But I just wanted to put it on the record and be very clear. There is currently also a rights-of-way right next to where the vegetable stand that's not store anymore, that is now storage for the mayor. That all has laid out contiguous properties that are full access to the back and to the main fields. Like I said, that used to be Eagles Lake that has been filled in now. And so this really is to complete that so that they can create a master plan to upgrade the entire area, and without having full title to that contiguous property, they will probably lose the access, because that's a main access point, and that's the reason why the mayor needs this, to complete the inventory. There really would be no other use for this piece of property because it services the contiguous properties. If you were to use it for another use and it will be non-compatible, then you really would be actually almost creating possibly a landlock in the back. Because if you, to the left of where that building is the main access going into Eagles Field. To the right is where the ramen shop is, the basketball courts and everything else, which has its other access to the softball fields and everything else. So just wanted to make it very clear for my colleagues that just giving some age-old experience and having used that field for years and years and years, that the requirement here is to make this transfer whole for access as well as completing the full size of the parcel lot so that you don't have mixed use. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. I did want to see if Senator, of the author of the legislation, if he wanted to yield to Senator San Augustine's question as it relates to the application of the rules and regs, if that's still in order. Senator San Augustine, you did have the floor. Did you want to have the author answer that inquiry that you stated?
No, I just made a clear statement. Because I'm the author of Public Law 34-89, we will be looking into that if there's rules and regulations. If there's not,
okay,
then we're going to start addressing this, because we want the Tamuning area to be a sports facility. That's what it was driven back in 2017. Let's get it done and let's move on, not blame anybody for anything.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. With that being said, anyone else on the main motion? If not, Senator Lujan, you may close.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you all my colleagues as well, and thank you for the concern put forward, of course, by Senator San Augustine. And you know, let me just say that the Municipal Planning Council of Tamuning, they're very active, and I'm sure they're listening and watching right now. So you can rest assured that the rules and regs will be adhered to as well. You know, as disclosure as well. Pardon me for not disclosing that at the very beginning, but yeah, I'm from Tamuning and grew up there. And as, of course, my co-sponsor, of course, Senator Duenas had said, growing up there, and actually even prior to being the home of the Tamuning Eagles, it was even prior to that it was the home of the Tamuning Greens and Tamuning Blues Little League team. That's when the quarry that's right behind it was still very active, and even prior to LBJ being built, and then across the street prior to Greyhound dog racing facility being built, that was a place where the quarry, what they were quarrying behind that field was placing their aggregates, and so. That's a little bit of history over there, and it was the old Tamuning Elementary School prior to this new erection of the school, and even prior to that, prior to the St. Anthony School being built as well. And it was, as Senator San Augustine said, you know, at one point, kind of like the center of sports years back. And so that is the vision of the mayor, vice mayor, and the municipal planning council, again, to have that, again, enhance the facilities. Hopefully, they'll be able to get grant money. As again, in the past, they've had applied, but they didn't have clear title on the property because of they had included in the sketch this property, but they didn't have clear title to that. So hopefully, moving forward, they'll be able to do so and be granted the grant money that they're going to be applying for, and hopefully they'll have lights there. And there's already a basketball court over there, the outdoor basketball court that has lights at night. But we like that again to become the center of sports, being that it's being in the center of the island. So hopefully they return real quick as well. And I know that the Mooning Gym, that's getting ready to open. I think they were just having to address the pigeon facility that's happening over there, because the you know, they have these roll-up doors and everything like that. I think more pigeons are using it than than athletes at this point. So I think they're gonna have to try to address that as well. But that being said, Madam Speaker, I want a motion to add on Senator Tello and Senator Tina to the as authors, and Senator Barnett, and Senator Dwayne, and Senator San Nicolas, and all other senators.
On that motion, thank you very much, Senator Lon. On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. And on a motion to put it to the third reading.
Madam Speaker, I motion to place this in the voting file. Thank you.
To move this bill
To move it, the third reading voting file. Thank you.
On that motion to move Bill 212-37 to the voting file, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Colleagues?
Madam Speaker.
We're going to take a, Senator Dwayne, do you have a, we were going to.
Yes, ma'am. Can I make a motion to go back to my Bill 170?
Senator Dwayne, we will entertain, we're going to take a moment's recess. There's some complications with the microphone, and it's not fair, so we're just a moment's recess, please. Thank you all for your understanding.
We're back from recess. Senator Barnett, you're recognized. Senator St. Nicholas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to make a motion to go back to my bill that was not placed on the bottom of the agenda.
Bill number 170?
170,
Yeah,
yes.
we did call that. You weren't here at the time. But there's a motion to go back to Bill number 170-37 COR. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're on Bill number 170-37 COR.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to place bill number 170-37 on the third reading file for discussion.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also like to thank Senator Barnett. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in front of you. Normally, it's not my nature to do that, but I'd like to thank you for being courteous enough to have my bill heard first. Thank you, sir. Madam Speaker, bill number 170-37, introduced by myself, Senator Joe San Augustine, Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, Amanda L. Shelton, William A. Parkinson, Roy A. B. Kanata, an act to add a new subsection 79607 to Article 6 of Chapter 79, Title 21, Guam Code Annotated, relative to authorizing the Independent Vietnam Veterans Association of Guam to use a portion of the Skinner Plaza to establish the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Monument honoring the 77 sons of Guam who made the ultimate sacrifice and all Vietnam veterans in service to our island and our country.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The nonprofit organization Independent Vietnam Veterans Association of Guam wishes to utilize a portion of the Skinner Plaza to establish a memorial monument honoring the 77 sons of Guam who made the ultimate sacrifice, all of the Vietnam veterans in service to our island and our country. The portion of this of the monument will be, or the monument will be on Skinner Plaza, and it's identified as lot number 5 and 6. It's located, if you're looking in from Marine Drive, it's right behind the Korean War Monument. The Independent Vietnam Veterans Association of Guam, with the authority to establish the Vietnam Memorial within the Skinner Plaza, is in honor of the 77 sons of Guam who made the ultimate sacrifice and all of the Vietnam veterans in service to our island and our country. I asked my colleagues' support for this measure. I think the measure had no opposition, but I did get one email from a student from the Academy of Our Lady who supported the bill. She sent in her testimony, and I'd like to thank her. And also, I'd like to thank my colleagues for their support on this measure. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Citizens Mossy, Senator St. Nicholas. On the bill, is there anyone who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Vice Speaker, you're recognized.
Citizens Mossy, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to rise in support of Bill number 170-37 COR, and I'd like to thank the good sponsor, who's also a veteran, the opportunity for making me a part of the co-sponsorship. I want to say the intent, Madam Speaker, of this bill grants the nonprofit Independent Vietnam Veterans Association of Guam the authority to use a portion of Skinner's Plaza to erect the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Monument. Madam Speaker, I know a lot of us have family members who did serve in the Vietnam era, and a lot of them did have the lucky ones came home. But there were 77 of our island residents who died in service of the freedom and honoring and protecting the values of who we are as a free country. And having 77 of our own soldiers not make it home is a really a big tragedy. And for many years, a lot of these soldiers and a lot of these veterans literally had a hard time for the service that they'd done for our island and for our country, and none of them were recognized. It's amazing now, fast forward to 2022, when we see a lot of nonprofit organizations that are out there sponsoring and helping veterans who haven't gotten their benefits, veterans who have gone through all the different wars within our lifetime and are finally just trying to see and to see if they still qualify and see if they can still get benefits. And a lot of these nonprofit organizations have taken it upon themselves to personally work with families, with veterans that are still alive from the Vietnam era and all the other wars that are out there. And when this bill was asked, I know that it was brought up before, I said that I would support this effort because I know that I had an adopted brother who served in Vietnam, not one term, 2 terms, but 3 times. And God bless his soul. I know he's in heaven looking down saying, finally, Tina. But Eddie boy, I know you're up there listening. And I know that this recognition and this monument would at least bring a reflection for all those who suffered and died the atrocities of war for the freedoms that we live today. And being a part of this sponsorship just makes me feel even more humbled that the author, who's a veteran himself, and we, Madam Speaker, have more than several veterans in this August body. No, I don't know if any of them served, and I know our previous colleague who just passed away recently, Senator Pito, did serve in the Vietnam War, and I know that he would have been one of those proud sponsors too, and I'd like to recognize him for all the efforts and his service to country and to our island, and knowing that he did Guam well. And if we're going to pay homage and honor to these 77 people who died in service for the freedoms that we live today, then even more fitting that we advocate and promote this bill. So, Madam Speaker, I stand in rise of this bill, 170-37 COR. I want to thank the good author of this legislation for doing his due diligence and working with the nonprofit, but more importantly, knowing that they will even look for the funds to help build this monument. So it just takes the burden off of the government. So I truly appreciate being a part of this legislation, and I ask my colleagues to please support this effort.
Senator, Vice Speaker, on the bill, Senator Fisher, you're recognized on the bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I hope most of my colleagues here in this chamber have been recently to the village of Umatic. If you go there, on the left side, the overlook of that beautiful village, you will see the Vietnam Memorial, and it's heartbreaking, actually. When you go there and you look at the names, and you see Sanchez, Kanata, Sanchez, Sanchez, Kanata, 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 and it becomes immediately apparent that so many brothers and cousins in that village died defending the country. I don't think there is a person in UMATIC that wasn't personally affected by the Vietnam War and the tremendous aching void that was left by the absence of these children who sacrificed themselves for the Constitution of the United States so that we could assemble here in this room to discuss the business of Guam. If it wasn't for the courage of young men and young ladies on this island to go out and serve us all, we might not have that privilege. So we owe a debt of gratitude to these men and women that can never adequately be repaid. I think it's important that memorials like this be erected, and I thank you very much, Senator Dwayne, because it must assuage some of the unending grief for some of the parents and children and brothers and sisters on this absence to know that the island shares in that grief and shares in a remembrance of the absence of these young boys and young women. It can also be said of the entire island. I don't think there's a family on this island that hasn't been touched in one way or another by war. You know, the pain of losing a child, I think, the pain of losing a brother, a loved one, never goes away. But at least we can let them know that we share in that pain and share in the remembrance always of the sacrifice that was made. We share in the valor that these young men and women exhibited. They will not be forgotten. We are forever grateful and forever unable to adequately express that gratitude. But for all of these people, for your eternal sacrifice that you have made for us, please know, and the families, please know that under no circumstances will they ever be forgotten, whether there's a memorial or not. These veterans, these people who fought for us are extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Again, I'll just wrap up by saying they supported it, the Constitution. They defended the Constitution. They support the Constitution. I hope if I could just be half the person that would do that, I think that would be enough for me. Thank you very much.
Senator. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized? Senator Lujan, you're recognized on the bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Ditto the retiring speaker. I echo his sentiments as well, and I just kudos to the, of course, the author of the bill. There's just one concern I have, Madam Speaker, and I'm wondering if the author will yield to the question of what part of Skinner Plaza would this be erected? And the reason why I'm asking is because if we can look out here, immediately past behind the museum there, in a hard rain, it becomes like a ponding basin there. And it takes a while for that water to percolate. So I'm just wondering where it's going to be built, because if it's going to be in that area there, it would be really disrespectful for an erection to honor our fallen in that area, if the percolation or the the water situation is not taken care of. So I'm just wondering, because it looked like a swimming pool there after a hard rain. So I'm just wondering where it's at from, or whereabouts it's going to be erected, if the speaker will yield to it.
Would the sponsor yield to the question?
Yes, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Senator Lujan, for the question. Right now, we're having the staff pass out the map, and you can see in the illustration, as you're looking in from Marine Drive, it's right behind it's on the left side, right behind the Korean War Memorial.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. No, yeah, thank you, because I was just wondering, because I'm like, whoa, I hope it won't be right over here, because that would have to, I mean, it would be even costlier to erect it, because they would have to take care of the percolation, or the water that stands there for a few days, and it won't be, I mean, once that happens, people won't be able to visit that until the water percolates. So yeah, it's no, it's not even close to that area. It's towards the Marine Drive more. So thank you very much again, and I'm full support of this. It's you know, the men that we lost, again, they would never be forgotten. And as the retiring speaker, Senator Fisher, had said, you go up to Umatic and the overlook over there, it's a somber place. But, you know, we're here today because of all those that have given their lives. And so I invite, again, each and every one of you, and every time we go down south, to stop by there and count our blessings on a daily basis. We do that. But thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Senator Taitugui, you're recognized.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just have a question for the author of the legislation, if he should yield.
Please state your question.
Okay. Who currently has jurisdiction over the property at Skinner Plaza?
On a point of information, Madam Speaker, if I may.
Yes, Vice Speaker, you're
And
recognized.
being the former speaker and the steward or the guardian of the property, parts of Skinner still is under the jurisdiction of the legislature, and the other parts are with the Department of Parks and Recs.
A bit. Would the sponsor yield?
Yes, Madam Speaker. You know, I don't think in the bill is not it's not recognized. But just give me a moment.
Madam Speaker, if I may, if the author would like to take a minute to try and find out this information, I think it's very important for everyone to know, especially those listening audiences, you know, where the land is actually being taken from, which department or agency. So if he wants to take a minute to find out, I have no problem.
Yes, ma'am. Can I take a brief recess, please?
Sure. We'll take a 1-minute recess.
Thank you.
We're back from recess. Senator Nicholas, you were asked if you would like
Yes,
to
ma'am.
yield.
I'll yield to the question, and thank you to Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munoz Barnes and Senator Tom Fisher and Senator Roy Canata for helping me clarify this. Last thing I want to do is try to derail a bill that's honoring 77 of our veterans that we lost in Vietnam. So it's Public Law 31-232, signed by Governor Calvo. It's transferring the property of Skinner Plaza to the Department of Chamorro Affairs. Does that suffice?
Senator Nicholas, could you please repeat your citation? Public law?
Public Law, yes, Madam Speaker. Public Law 31-232.
All right. According to the council, it's transferred, Skinner's was transferred in that public law to the government of Guam. Senator Tello, you have the floor.
And there's no other, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the author. And there's no other legislation after that public law in place to do any other kind of transfer. So we're relying on a public law that was almost 9 years ago, and nothing else has. Okay, so we're saying that Skinner Plaza belongs to the government of Guam, period. It's not Parks and Rec, it's not the Guam Museum, it's not the legislature. It belongs to the government of Guam, period. I think I just wanted to make this clear because I think we need to know, I mean, we haven't heard from any other agencies or departments about taking away this piece of property to be utilized. And there's nothing in the committee report, you know, mentioning that. So I just want to make sure that if it is Parks and Rec, that Parks and Rec, if we ask them, if it's okay with them, but if it's the government of Guam as a whole, then how can that be when it's?
Council represents, Senator, that that's what the public law says, that it's transferred to the government of Guam. She's not representing what happened subsequent to that,
Okay.
if anything.
Okay, so now we have it under the government of Guam. Okay. The second question I have for the author, if he should yield, we also gave a portion of the land to the Gold Star recipients. And if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it could be, I mean, my father was retired Air Force. My children's father retired as well in the military. I mean, like everyone, we have family members that are part of the military. And we're grateful for their service, and we're grateful for them returning. Some have not, and we continue to pray for them and remember them. However, there was a Gold Star monument that was put up, and on that Gold Star, it represented those who also, I guess the Gold Star means you have sacrificed, or that individual had died and they get a gold star and their names are put up. So I was just wondering, what's the difference between these 77 individuals versus those who are mentioned on the gold star recipients?
Would the sponsor yield?
Yes, ma'am. Gold Star is actually a new reference to members of our citizenry who given their lives. It's kind of like a recent thing. I think it was an act probably right after Desert Storm, one of our desert conflicts that we've entered in. And Gold Star is for everyone who died in all these, in other conflicts, recent conflicts. And this Vietnam Veterans Memorial is honoring the sacrifice of the 77 men who perished in the Vietnam conflict, which is, you know, it's defined, and you know, it's a sacrifice that was a different time in our history, and it's different from the Gold Star. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So just to reiterate, thank you for that. So I would assume that those 77 who sacrificed their lives for our freedom are also on the Gold Star monument as well, or they are not. I wasn't quite sure because it sounded...
No, they're not, Madam Speaker.
I'm sorry? Madam Speaker, the question would be to the author.
All right, with the author, yeah.
Yes, Madam Speaker. The Gold Star is a very recent honor that's given to the fallen of our just very recent conflicts. So the names of these 77 individuals will not appear there.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator. Senator.
Thank you for answering my question and understanding what, you know, the differences between them, and appreciate the time put into that. So thank you, Madam Speaker. I have no more questions.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, is there any other senator who'd like to speak on the bill? If not, then the sponsor may, sorry, Senator Brown, you, on the bill, you're recognized.
Right. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I certainly did want to rise in support of this bill. I was asked by my godfather's daughter to provide her testimony. She wasn't able to be here for the public hearing, and certainly I wanted to include, and she certainly also wanted to include her testimony for the record. And it's certainly going to say, and if you're not aware of, not experienced, it'll certainly give you a feeling of what many, many families have experienced in the loss of a loved one, especially in conflict, especially the loss of someone you very much cared about and who died at a very young age. And in our family, not just my godfather, but the very first casualty we had in Vietnam, Sus Mariano, was a cousin of ours. And the interesting thing is these two young men literally grew up within 300 feet of each other in Magat Mangilo. Jesus being the first casualty, and my godfather, Mark Biagini, being the last. So I'm going to do my very best, because this is probably the one topic in all the time I've been in the legislature that probably has ever given me the most emotion in speaking on this floor. But I'm very honored to read this, and I think when you hear what my godfather's daughter has to say, I think you'll understand the significance of what a loss, and I know there are many in our community, in this Guam community, that know what this feels like, of those families that have lost a loved one in conflict. Half a day. My name is Michelle Perez, and I'm the only child of Mark Salas Biagini, one of the last sons of Guam killed in the Vietnam War. He made the ultimate sacrifice on June 13th, 1972, just one day before his 22nd birthday, leaving behind not only a grieving community, but also his parents, Simplicia Salas Biagini and Tomas Garcia Blas. My father was their only child, and his loss left a void that could never be truly filled. Although I was just 4 months old when my father died, his absence has always been a shadow over my life. I never got to experience his presence, but his memory has been kept alive by my grandmother and my mother, Agnes Italic Cruz, who truly never recovered from the loss. I became their only connection to him, a living reminder of the son and the love that they so cherished deeply. One of my most cherished memories is sitting beside my grandmother, looking over photos and reading aloud the letters my father wrote while on tour in Vietnam. Her smile sparkled with pride as I recited his words, yet tears welled up in her eyes, reflecting the pain that never truly subsided. These letters provided a glimpse into the kind of man he was, a man of integrity, humility, and fierce protectiveness, just as my other family members described him. Every Memorial Day, we gather to honor his sacrifice, a tradition I continue to this day. Nearly 52 years later, the pain of his loss is still fresh. Witnessing my family's emotions, their grief etched even after decades, reminds me of the profound impact of his sacrifice has had. It underscores the importance of never forgetting our fallen heroes, not just their families, but for our island community and nation. While no number of ceremonies, monuments, or gestures can truly repay the debt we owe these brave souls, initiatives like Bill 170 are crucial to ensuring their memories are preserved and their sacrifices acknowledged. This bill represents a step towards honoring their legacy and reminding future generations of the price paid for our freedom. Therefore, I urge you to pass Bill 170 and show our deep gratitude to the fallen heroes like my father, Mark Salas Biagini, and all those who gave their lives for our island and our nation. I think these comments and words that Michelle has written definitely hit home, and they hit home here at the legislature because we all know who Agnes Cruz is. You know, you can go through life and many years have passed, and indeed, it's been 52 years since my godfather was killed in action. You know, it's not something we're prideful of, in recognizing that he was the last Chamorro son to be killed in action in Vietnam. Because we thought, oh my goodness, if he had survived, what a difference in our lives he would have made today had he still been here. And I know that's a pain that many families feel. It's a pain that never leaves you, no matter how much time passes. It's almost as if it was yesterday. It's also important to recognize all those that came home. My dad was one of them. He was in the Riverine Force in Vietnam, and I'm grateful. Couldn't imagine life without him. Fellow colleagues, when we look at these monuments, yes, you know, they may be concrete, they may be granite, something that we see and look at and think, oh my goodness, there must have been something important as to why this monument was built. But there's a human side of it. There's a side that lives on in us every day that carry these memories. For me, I had such wonderful memories of my godfather. He was smart, he was handsome. He drove around in a 1962 Corvette that was red and white, and he was such a light in our family. Even to today, we still feel that sense of loss, because he was something and someone incredibly special to us. And I know every family that has lost a loved one in conflict shares and feels that very same feeling, that pain that never leaves you. Yes, it's another monument, but it's something even more important. It's something to recognize who these men were, what they did, and what they sacrificed, especially at a time in their life when everyone would think, oh, when you're young, everything's ahead of you. And for them, there was no time ahead for any one of them. So I hope we keep that in mind and think of Michelle and all the many others, because there are many other children in this community that grew up without their parent, without their father to be there, to guide them, to hold them, to tell them that they love them, to tell them that they'd be there for every challenge in their life. We need to remember them. And certainly the construction of this monument that's very much been initiated by the very veterans that served arm in arm with those that passed away is an opportunity to do so, to remember and honor not just their sacrifice, but the fact that they lived, and they lived in this community, and they made a difference for who and what we are today. So with that, Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to comment on this bill. I'll say it again, it's Mark Salas Biagini. We knew him as Frederick. And certainly to all the others that we've lost. And I do want to add, Madam Speaker, I think the fact that we take every opportunity to recognize fallen members in our community before every session is certainly something to be appreciated. I'm sure the family, when they hear the name of their loved one, it brings them back for a moment. And they know that their loved one is remembered. And I think that's the most important thing you can do with someone who's passed, particularly those that were taken so early on in their lives. So with that, again, Madam Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the bill? If not, then sponsor may close on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When I was deployed, a convoy of friendly forces got into a really bad situation. And I was one of the quick response guys, supposed to go out there, and it just so happened that the next day I was supposed to go on R&R and go home. And so as I got onto the Humvee, my commander starts running out, and he says, St. Nick, get out from that convoy. And I said, why? Because you're going on R&R tomorrow. And you know, when they don't want you to go out there and, you know, miss that very important day the next day. So he switched me out with one of my battle buddies, and the look in his eyes was gut-wrenching. And I told him, I'll be here waiting for you when you come home, when you come back. I don't really tell this to many people, but it took 2 years of counseling when I came home because of that one very incident. But it's strong, and it still remains in me. And I've been praying to the Lord every time. I said, please, you know, this is one skill that I don't want to ever, you know, do on anybody. That's the only skill I haven't used. I've been a school counselor, a customs officer, an infantryman, and that's one of the skills I've never got to use. And thank God, I've always prayed every day. And I said, you know, Lord, if you let me go home, I'll try to do good things, you know. And so, thank you. And so, it's a great honor for me to introduce this, because I kind of feel the experience of what a Vietnam soldier would have experienced. And see, they didn't come home with the same fanfare or disability benefits that we came home to. They went out to the field, they didn't wear flak vests, you know, they didn't wear body armor like we did. So it was a different time, different place. Totally different time, totally different place. And it was befitting that Mr. Beneventi brought this to my attention, and ask me to introduce this measure. It absolutely costs no money to the government because they will be the ones to raise the funds and build the monument. And the only cost, I guess, to the government is the utilization of the land, because we will give them that here today. But my uncle passed away in this conflict in the Vietnam War, and I never thought I'd make it this far. And it's such an honor to introduce this bill. And I ask my colleagues for their support, and I thank Senator Joanne Brown for that wonderful, her wonderful testimony. Senator Jesse Lujan, Senator Tom Fisher, Speaker Munya Barnes for helping me find the information, and Senator Roy and Senator Joe here for their support. I'm still a freshman senator. I'm still learning all this lingo, but I really like to thank them. And if it pleases, I would like to add them as a co-sponsor. Everybody.
Could you please restate the order, Senator?
I'd like to add Senator Tom Fisher, Senator Jesse Lujan, Senator Joanne Brown, and all others, if it pleases them.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to send it to third reading for voting.
All right. On that motion to place Bill 170-37 COR as amended on the floor to third reading, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Ms. Massey. We'll continue on second reading, Bill 226. Senator Barnett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd first like to motion that we accept the substitute version of the bill.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to place Bill number 226-37 COR, introduced by myself, Senator Chris Barnett, an act to amend subsection 21-103 of Chapter 21, Title 10, Guam Code, annotated relative to requiring sanitary permits to be renewed every year on the anniversary date of issue. And I'd like to discuss the measure, ma'am.
Please proceed.
Sijus Masi. As I know you all know, it's been a very long and challenging road relative to our public school system and the compliance with the public health rules and regulations for school safety and sanitation. And I am encouraged by the fact that today, now more than any other time in the history of our island, the conversation about the state of our schools is one of the biggest conversations we're having every single day. And so I'm thankful to my colleagues. I know it's a little bit of a rough ride, and we had introduced many measures relative to the schools and the safety and sanitation guidelines. And so while we had passed measures in here that were subsequently signed into law by the governor that allowed the Guam Department of Education to open schools that have not been inspected by public health, and to also continue to operate schools that have failed public health inspection, that even though we passed those bills, we also passed another bill that was signed into law that moved the compliance timeline that we had originally moved up to the start of last school year back to the start of the upcoming school year. And so all of those things have happened, and the one constant has been, although maybe not as quick as we want, the work has continued in the public school system. You know, work to bring the schools into compliance, and I'm very encouraged and grateful that the superintendent of the Guam Department of Education, even though he had the authority to open schools that have failed inspection and to operate schools that haven't been inspected, he really is leading the department with the thought process that in order for our kids to attend these schools, that they should be able to pass a public health inspection. So that's encouraging, that we're making these little improvements. And again, I'm thankful to all of my colleagues here in the body for helping us push that agenda and that narrative about giving our kids a place to go to school that they want to learn in, that they can feel proud of. And we're going to get there one day, not today, but one day. So with all that being said, there has been looming in the background of this issue a very troubling scenario where schools that have been inspected, prior to and during this school year and have passed inspection, no matter what date they were inspected, no matter what date they passed inspection, all of the sanitary permits for the Guam Department of Education schools expire on June 30th, regardless of when they were issued. So for example, a school like Atacao Elementary School or Tamuning Elementary School, which just passed its inspection in January of this year, these schools will only get about 6 months out of that sanitary permit. And so what this bill aims to address is that situation that we're facing. And that situation, again, is one where all of the sanitary permits that have been issued to the public schools all expire on June 30th, which means with the public health school safety and sanitation guidelines going live at the start of the next school year, we could very well end up in a scenario where the Guam Department of Education is unable to open schools simply because the Department of Public Health and Social Services lacks the staff. Well, it's twofold, really. One is that public health lacks the adequate number of staff to go out and inspect the schools, and the other, of course, is that outside of significant help from the government agencies, the Guam Department of Education is supposed to be in the business of educating the kids. And they are now in the business of educating the kids and making repairs to the schools so that we can pass the public health inspections. And so basically that means if we don't pass this law, we could end up in a very bad situation that, although it may be hard to believe, could be even worse than the situation we were in at the start of this school year. And so all this bill does, it's a very simple bill, is it amends the expiration date of the sanitary permit to be on the 1-year anniversary date of issuance. So for example, the schools like Tamuning Elementary, who passed inspection recently, will get a full year out of that sanitary permit. And I think that this will help take some of the pressure off of both the Guam Department of Education and the Department of Public Health and Social Services, because not only are we going to get out of that situation where every school expires on June 30th, we're going to be in a situation where the permit expiration dates will be staggered. And that'll give public health more time to prepare for inspections, and more importantly, it'll give the Guam Department of Education more time to do the necessary fixes and the necessary self-inspections that they need to do to ensure passage of these public health inspections so that they can then in turn ensure that they will be able to operate at the start of school year 2024-2025. And so again, the bill, it simply reads, we struck through a little section here. All permits applicable thereto shall be issued on an annual basis and regardless of when issued shall expire 1 year after the date for which issued or renewed. And then there's a section here that deals with the workforce housing, and the reason why we included this is because that was at the suggestion of public health. The sanitary permits for the temporary workforce housing, that's in its own realm of rules and regulations. And then again, just for reiteration, the fees for the sanitary permit shall be determined by the director by regulation and shall be collected by him, and then we add a new language here, or his designee. New language also included the falsification of application for a sanitary permit may result in the suspension or revocation of the sanitary permit, and this is in accordance with subsection 21-109. And like I said, it's a simple bill. I again ask humbly for the support of my colleagues so that we can keep things moving forward at the Guam Department of Education and avoid any more challenges being placed in front of, not just the public school system, but in front of our students and their ability to learn. So Thank you again, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to open on the bill, and I again ask the support of my colleagues. Jesus Masi.
Jesus Masi, Senator. On the bill, is there anyone who'd like to be recognized on the bill? Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just curious, and maybe the author could explain. This covers everyone. It's not just DOE. It's everybody on the island. And maybe you can explain, gosh, the first page and then go on to the end of the first page. Regardless of when issued, shall expire 1 year after the date which it was issued and renewed. But then further down on line 11, the director shall have up to 12 months. Could you please explain that? I'm trying to digest that, because if the director is going to have up to 12 months, and you mentioned earlier the school was inspected in January, after this is enacted, he's got 12 months to figure out now how he can plan the rest of the island on how to inspect. Maybe some of the schools will get lucky and they'll got until June of 2024, even they were inspected in January. And I'm just hoping for some leeway in making sure that everybody understands that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Would the author yield?
Yes, ma'am, I would. So in testimony during the public hearing, representatives from Public Health asked for 12 months time period so that they can implement this. And the retiring speaker is correct in saying that this applies to all of the permits. And again, this was okay with Public Health. So they asked to have up to 12 months to implement this change, but they did during the public hearing pledge that they would prioritize the sanitary permits that deal with the public school system. And I hope that satisfies the good senator from Chico. Sidus Masi.
Sidus Masi. Senator San Augustine, you have the floor.
And I'm happy that Public Health is saying that they're going to make DOE be the priority. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're priority or not. I only look at this way is that if DOE needs to get inspected, and then unfortunately a restaurant down the road also needs to be inspected, I just want to make sure Public Health, when they start saying they can do it, because I support the intent of this bill. This is good. They got some breathing room. Public Health is actually going to get the breathing room they needed. But sometimes I think Public Health has a tendency to ask for breathing room and then they just bury themselves in their own paperwork. Because I give you a good example, Madam Speaker, and to my colleagues. I worked at Revenue and Tax, and everybody says, compliance office, which I was the chief, we got to inspect businesses. There was 5 of us in that office, and we had 4,000 businesses to inspect. Really? And almost 90% of those businesses require a public health inspection. So I'm only saying, thank you for the bill, gives Public Health some breathing room, but I hope Public Health is ready to do what they need to do, because I don't want the author of the bill to say, how about Public Health? You said you needed 12 months. We gave you 12 months, then you still can't do it. That's what I'm concerned about, because I'd like to give as much breathing room to DOE so they can get into teaching and let the management of DOE, who shouldn't be teachers, should be getting ready for the inspection. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I do support the bill with this intent.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
On the bill, Senator Taitagui, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand in support of this legislation. I was there at the public hearing and asked quite a bit of questions because I was kind of concerned about, if you're going to inspect a school in December and it's going to give them 1 year, school starts in August. Are you going to actually let these kids go in there before an inspection is done, even if it's 3 months down the line before it's inspected? And I looked at the superintendent with evil eyes, making sure that, are you going to make sure that those schools are going to be ready to open on August? I mean, even though you have 4 more months for this particular school to open to pass inspection, are you going to make sure? And he says, absolutely, we would not open the schools for that, and giving him the benefit of the doubt. I told him, well, we're going to keep a watchful eye on him, and he says, I'm sure you will. And we will. I mean, even the author of this legislation is holding them to the fire every single month, having a hearing, informational hearing. It doesn't miss. And even taking it out to the community. But the most important thing about this legislation was it doesn't have a bottleneck. You know, it frees up more flexibility for public health and DOE. You know, once upon a time, we had our registrations would all expire at the same time, and you could barely get down to Rev and Tax to get it renewed because there's a long line. I mean, this is to avoid that, to simplify it for everyone involved, both public health and DOE. And we're just following those same guidelines, even when it comes to businesses. But you can bet you, come August, when it comes time, and I'm sure that the author of this legislation is going to ensure that all those schools that are going to open up on time will be ready to go. And if it's not, then, well, we've seen it. They just won't open. Our safety and well-being of our children come first and foremost than meeting a deadline of when school starts. That's secondary. So I greatly appreciate what was done here. It was thoughtful, very thought through. However, the sanitary permit for the temporary workforce housing category, as defined in the chapter, it was included in this. And can you give it a little bit more explanation as to why public health was very adamant and putting that section in the bill? We know the importance of the education, but, you know, is there, smiling, yeah. Just a simple question to the author of the legislation, if he should yield on that.
Would the sponsor you?
I sure would, ma'am. Thank the Senator for that question. This change was actually made in committee at the request of Public Health, and Public Health, I think, was really trying to err on the side of caution to make sure that when we were addressing the sanitary permits that we didn't impact at all the temporary workforce housing, because as I said in that open, they are in their own section of law. They're a totally different type of animal, separate and apart from the public schools and the other businesses that are covered by the sanitary permit program. And so I thank the committee for putting this into the measure, just so we can really make sure that we aren't, fiddling with the temporary workforce housing and the permitting process for that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the author of the legislation. I appreciate that. I mean, we're trying to, what did they say? One stone, two birds, take it down. So I greatly appreciate that it was incorporated into this. And I asked, Madam Speaker, that the author of this legislation can include me as a co-sponsor to this bill. And appreciate innovative thinking, and continue to wish all of us the best of luck to ensure these schools are open on time in August too as well. Let's see what everyone here can do to make sure that it happens this time, next school year. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on the bill?
On the bill.
Bill 226-37, Speaker Terlahi, you are recognized.
Jesus Masi. I just wanted to rise in support of this bill and really acknowledge how far we have come from the beginning of the term in regards to our schools. We find out almost every day that many schools still have so many issues, even those that have been opened. We hear about, one of our colleagues writing a letter regarding one of the schools in Chalampago. Every day there are complaints from parents and teachers about the schools. However, prior to this term, they were pretty much operating without inspections. They were opening every year without sanitary inspections. They had got a bypass from public health or by their request. They had requested to be bypassed for inspections for 5 years, and so that they would make improvements, but obviously they did not. And that's really a tragedy for our students. But I'm very grateful to the courage of some of my colleagues, especially the sponsor of this bill, to really force our hand, force the entire government's hand, force DOE's hand, force public health's hand to get these schools up to par. And we've seen when public health goes out to inspect that they're still not all up to par. And so there's still so many corrections that need to be made by public health. Of course, these are very expensive, but we were at a certain point in our history where luckily DOE had some money and they could make these changes. The governor had some money to contribute to some of these changes. So I'm just glad that we are not going to roll back again the renewal date for these inspections or these permits, but we are actually going to mandate that they are renewed every year, continue to mandate that. As you know, prior to previous law, sanitary permits across the government were allowed to be made without inspections. But our law, by this body, the 37th Guam Legislature, mandated that inspections would occur for every school every single year prior to opening. And we already know that prior to opening of the schools are, the principals work very hard, and all of their staff and team, to come up with these checklists so that the schools are ready to open. And we're facing that again in just a few months. So I'm glad that this bill does something very practical, and that is just staggers those inspections in accordance to the previous inspection. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, it's really very noisy.
Can we have some order, please, colleagues?
Is there an issue? Yeah, what it does, the bill that does very practically is it aligns them with their previous inspection so that, as you know, we are continuing to inspect schools every week, I think. So those that just passed, perhaps last month, January, do not have to be inspected again this summer, and they would get to be inspected again before next January. So I think that's very practical, and it keeps, they should be able to maintain their standards for that year, and we continue to inspect it every year for the schools. So I'm very grateful for that. We did add in the committee a couple things at the request of Department of Public Health, which I also think make the bill even better. One of them is that the falsification of an application for a sanitary permit may result in the suspension or revocation of the permit. And this is another tool that public health needed in order. As you know, and we just allowed the director to also make a designee for some of his duties here. And that's it. But I stand in full support of this bill, and I think we should continue to keep our schools' safety as one of our very top priorities here in the legislature, and that it actually should be, as we've always said, the priority of all of the government of Guam. I don't think we've fully seen that yet, although we have seen some cooperation from some agencies. I just think really the schools continue to be in great need of help, just like the hospital, and they could use the resources of the entire government. Situs Masi, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Speaker. On the bill, Senator Blas, Minority Leader Blas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, while I recognize the intent of the bill, I don't know if the language of the bill, aligns with the intent. Because if you look on page 1, starting from line 6, it says all permits applicable thereto shall be issued on an annual basis and, regardless of when issued, shall expire 1 year from now. So, when it's issued, it could be regardless of when issued. So all the permits, you can get inspected in March, and your permit won't be issued until June. Guess what? It's all in June. So I think that there needs to be a little bit more word crafting here, because when you say regardless of when issued, so regardless, you can be issued, again, you could get inspected in 1 month and then get the permit down the road. It doesn't do it. And I'd be very careful, because then what we're opening up here is then there's a broad interpretation. And does it resolve the matter? I know what the intent is, but the language doesn't represent that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Blas. On the bill, Bill number 226-37. Sponsor, you may close.
Thank you. Situs Masi, I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank Speaker Terlai for the good work on the bill that she did in committee. And I think the language that we're using is very plain and reads simply, shall be issued on an annual basis and regardless of when issued shall expire 1 year after the date for which issued or renewed. It's very simple. And I just hope for the support of my colleagues on this. I don't think there's really much else to say, and I know that we're trying to move ahead in the agenda to make way for the bills that require committee of the whole. So that's it, Pansit. Situs Masi. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Situs Masi. Senator Barnett.
I'd like to motion to move the bill to the voting file.
On the motion to place Bill 226-37 as amended in the voting file, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. We are still in the second reading file. We are now on Bill number 228-37 as amended by the Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture, sponsored by Speaker Teresa Terlahi, an act to amend Section 75A109 of Chapter 75A and Section 75109A1 of Chapter 75, Title 21, Guam Code Annotated, and subsection 6A112 and 6A132 of Chapter 6A, and Section 6132 of Chapter 6, Title 18, Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations relative to successors to Chamorro Land Trust leases and applicants. Speaker Terlahi, you are recognized on the bill.
Citizens Mossy, I'd like to make a motion to place Bill number 228-37 COR as amended by the committee, the title you just read, to the third reading file, and I'd like to discuss that motion.
Please proceed.
So this bill was introduced on January 5th, had a hearing February 6th. It's introduced to tackle one of the longstanding issues that the Chamorro Land Trust has been facing in order to move forward on processing of applications. And what it does is quite simple. It adds to the successors that a lessee or an applicant can designate. So right now, someone who has a lease can designate at any time someone to take over their lease, one of their children. So current law says children, a spouse, a widow of the siblings, or nieces and nephews. So this bill would change it to add in that they can also designate grandchildren, parents, grandparents, siblings, and then the widowers of the children. So altogether, it would read that a lessee, one of those with the leases of the Chamorro Land Trust, or an applicant. And so we've made this equally applicable to applicants who are still waiting in line, that they can designate in their place a spouse, children, grandchildren, parents, grandparents, siblings, widows or widowers of the children or siblings or nieces and nephews. One of the practical reasons why this was done is because, as you know, this lease began in 1995, and people have aged significantly since then and are looking to their grandchildren to assist them in taking over these leases, taking care of the property. So what we did in committee with the bill, where we had initially started off to just change one section of the chapter, since we are applying it to applicants as well, we added that into the section, and we also made sure that the rules and regulations were consistent so that Chamorro Land Trust did not have to go through the AAA again to make their rules consistent with this law. So we've done that all together in this bill. So again, this removes one of the impediments to the efficient processing of successors to these leases and to the efficient processing of applicants who've been waiting since 1995. And so I asked my colleagues and I urge their support of this bill. I'd also like to make an amendment, and this amendment is to add another section to the bill, which would amend section 6112 of chapter 6, title 18 in the Guam Administrative Rules and Regs. So this is again to amend one of the existing rules to make that consistent with this law, these successors. So just to make sure there's not any confusion, you'll see this bill has a chapter 75, and it also addresses chapter 75A, which was added several years ago as part of a settlement in a lawsuit. So we have rules under chapter 75, which is chapter 6 of title 18 GAR, and we also have rules that are chapter 6A. So all of these have now been made to be uniform as to who can be the successors. It's been expanded, and the rules have been correspondingly amended as well. So again, I ask my colleagues for their support.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We'll take a brief recess to reset the microphones and come back to speak on the bill. We are in recess. We are back from recess on Bill number 228-37 COR as amended by the Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture. Anyone wishing to speak on the bill? Oh, I'm sorry. Speaker, would you like to, your amendment? I'm sorry, we're speaking on. On the amendment, the Terlahi amendment, to line 26, page 7. Hearing no objections, amendment passes. On the bill, Bill 228-37 COR, Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a question. So what if the original leasee and the spouse have kids, but somebody puts them on their non-eligible spouse as a benefactor, then dies, and then the lease goes back to the non-eligible spouse, and then the spouse dies and the land goes back to the Chamorro Land Trust? I guess should there be an option that the non-eligible spouse can leave it to their eligible child?
Does the speaker yield to the question? Sponsor yield to the question.
I believe, yes, I will yield, and I believe the question is related to a section of the bill that we, part of this section of the bill that we are not touching because that was very clearly one of the stipulations of the settlement that we had in the case, and that this is for a very particular circumstance. There is nothing to prevent the lessees right now from designating anybody else. And this is if they die, they have the option right now, while they are alive, to designate somebody to inherit that lease. However, if they designate a spouse that is not eligible on their own to be a lessee, they are going to have a life estate in the property. That's according to the settlement, and that will end there. I am not proposing that we make any changes to that because that was very clearly a portion in the settlement that was necessary.
Thank you, Speaker. Does that satisfy the question, Senator Perez?
Yes, it does, Masi, Speaker. Thank you.
You're welcome. On the bill, Bill 228-37 as amended. Senator San Agustin, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment that maybe my colleagues can consider. It's on page 2. I just want to offer it that I don't need to have it printed. It's just a line out a certain section there. It's on page 2, line 6. B has been married to the leasee. To strike out right after that, the 7 years. And the reason why I bring that up because there are many folks on Guam that are common law. And some of them said, you know what? After 30, 40 years, they said, you know what, honey? I want to get married now. To get married. Then all of a sudden, because of the 7-year catch, they can't get anything. as far as the Chamorro Land Trust. And that's the only reason why I'm asking to strike that. Unless my colleagues want, I'll have it written up. I think it's already written up. It's just I'm just trying to shortcut this and just strike that portion. Other than that, I agree with this. They have to let it be known. But I'm just curious because I know that the author mentioned earlier that it'll go to, I guess, the probate or whatever when they discuss property rights. It's just amazing how our intent of this bill is to make sure it goes on to the family, the applicant. And if you want to talk about 1995, I'm also an applicant there, and I still haven't gotten anything. That's almost 30 years.
Thank you very much, Senator San Augustine. There is a motion on the floor to strike out page 2, line 6, for at least the past 7 years from the bill. On the amendment, Speaker Terlahi, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I very much empathize with the situation that the proffer of the amendment is suggesting. That is reality. I agree. However, again, this particular section of the law was one of those sections that was negotiated, and they really were very specific when they came in with the settlement as to 7 years. It was a very specific part of the settlement, and actually A, B, C, D, these were all part of the settlement. Because if you remember that case, it was brought by someone who alleged that they were a spouse and not eligible, and they were not able to get the property. And so it allows like an exception for those who have been married under this, and otherwise they would not have, just simply would not have been eligible. So this is an exception that was made as part of the settlement, and I do not want to, I would recommend we do not touch that, because that settlement was a very hard-won settlement.
Thank you. On the amendment,
I'd like to comment on that, and then maybe I'll just withdraw my
do
amendment.
you have a point of information?
Well, I just wanted to bring up an issue, Madam Speaker, that because it's part of the settlement, and I will withdraw it and basically announce to the people of Guam, if you have a common law arrangement and you got Chamorro Land Trust, go get married now and start counting the 7 years. That's what I wanted to announce. And I will withdraw my amendment.
On the motion to withdraw the amendment, are there any objections? Hearing none. On the bill as amended. On the bill as amended. Hearing none, sponsor may close.
Thank you very much, and I'm being reminded that on that one particular section where we're talking about 7 years of marriage, I think that number, I'm being reminded that it was the number of years represented as what was most likely to prevent a sham marriage and abuse of elders before they die. But in any event, I thank my colleagues for the discussion on their bill and hopefully for their support on this bill. And I'd like to add some sponsors to this bill. Yes, I'd like to add, especially the senators that were present during the hearing, Senator Joanne Brown, Senator Chris Barnett, Senator Telo Taitagui, Senator Roy Kanata was there. I'd also like to add Senator Perez and Senator San Augustine. Madam Speaker.
On the motion to add co-sponsors, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion passes.
Again, reiterate my motion to place the bill as amended on the floor and amended by the committee onto the third reading.
On the motion to place the bill in the third reading voting file. Hearing no objections, motion passes.
We're now on bill number 171-37 COR. Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Still Mossy, Madam Speaker. I move to accept substitute version Bill 171-37 onto the session agenda.
Can you, is that a substitute version?
There's a substitute. It's on the drive, and I believe that was handed out.
So Bill 171 as amended and substituted on the floor. There's a motion to accept the substitute version. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Parrish, you're recognized.
Still Mossy, Madam Speaker. Bill 171-37 intends to further curb instances of illegal dumping. There has been a call from our community and our government that stricter laws concerning illegal dumping need to be written into statute. Illegal dumping is not only an encumbrance on the beauty of our island, but it also affects our livelihood through the tourist industry. It also could leave hazards into our environment, and if left unchecked, could impact our lands, waters, and our ecosystem. Bill 171-37 proposes to increase fines for substantial littering violations based on volume and weight. Currently in statute, substantial littering violations are based on the number of offenses. $500 for the first offense, $750 for the second, and $1,000 for the third offense. So what this means is that a 32-gallon trash bag can get the same amount of offense as a truckload of construction debris if it's the first offense. And so this is not equitable, and it called for a revamping of the fines. During the public hearing, Guam EPA testified that volume was a method of choice in enforcing littering and dumping violations. Guam EPA subsequently agreed to the flexibility in utilizing weight or volume. In collaboration with Guam EPA, 3 tiers were proposed for illegal dumping, are as follows: $1,000 for 4 to 18 cubic feet. Basically 4 cubic feet equates to 1 32-gallon trash bag. Or if weights used, it would be 15 to 100 pounds. This particular category has the option to pay in community service at the rate of $1,000 divided by the minimum wage of $9.25 or 108 hours of service. The second tier is $5,000 for greater than 18 to 36 cubic feet. So that equates to roughly a truckload, right? Or 8 32-gallon trash bags. The alternate method of weight would be greater than 100 to 5,000 pounds. And the last tier was really designed for institutional violators at $10,000 for over 36 cubic feet or greater than 5,000 pounds. For every 18 cubic feet over that or 2,500 pounds over that, an additional 5,000 pounds. So it's really a progressive type of fine, so there's no cap. The effect of including weight would allow for illegal dumping violations to apply to appliances or objects such as a car battery, which doesn't meet the 4 cubic feet threshold, but which can pose serious environmental harm. By comparison, if waste were properly disposed, it would cost a fraction of the fines. For instance, curbside collection, 96-gallon trash cart service through Guam Solid Waste at $30.38 a month, or roughly $364 a year. A violation of the same volume would rack up $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year, which does not include the environmental cost or a cost to human health. Additionally, construction debris at one of the hard fills, $28 to $40 per truckload. Guam Solid Waste also accepts household hazardous waste for free at their transfer stations. In addition to the curbside collection, Guam Solid Waste also accepts white goods as part of their service with no additional cost. Bill 171-37 expands enforcement capacity by authorizing Guam EPA to establish a program to reward those who report littering violations that lead to a citation. And this was one of the recommendations from the General Manager Slike. Bill 171-37 increased fines are proposed to deter illegal dumping, but more than just a deterrent, what we're trying to do is to raise awareness throughout the community that illegal dumping is unacceptable and there is a right way to do it. These fines are on par with other substantial littering violations around the country. I know this bill will not be the only solution, but I think it's an important one and a bigger part of a campaign for a sustainable Guam. And I ask for my colleagues' support. Sejus Masi.
Sejus Masi, Senator Paris. On the bill, Senator San Augustine on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the bill. The only thing I'd like to ask is that if my colleagues would support, so I don't have to write it, that they just double all the fines. And you know, when the author said it's throughout the nation, hey, California is a lot bigger than Guam. We can't afford the littering. And people need to start paying for it. Enough's enough. We've seen people caught and they got paid, okay, $200, $1,000, piece of cake, because they do it again. They just dump it somewhere else. But if it starts hitting their pocket, they start spending some time. Because in the bill, it also identifies the formula for community service. Double everything. Let them understand that it does not pay to dump. Better just sign up for the Guam Solid Waste and let's move on. And that's my proposal, and I hope the author will support that. And my colleagues support it. Just go across the board, just double everything, and we move on from here. I'm in full support of this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
That's a motion, Senator? Is that a motion, Senator?
Yes, ma'am, and if I need to, I can have my staff write it real quick.
All right. There's a motion to double all the fines listed in the bill. On that motion, would anyone like to speak? Senator San Nicolas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I support the amendment. I wanted to end the session on a much lighter note. A couple years ago, I went to do my building permit, and they asked me, where did you put your construction waste? And I told them, I said, I dumped it behind Home Depot. And the faces of the people at the building permit couldn't believe what I said. But I didn't do that. It was just a joke. But I wanted to bring to light that, you know, we live in a beautiful island, a wonderful island, just a gem in the Pacific, and people just dump, and without care, you know. And I've been seeing you know, when I was a child, I'd walk through Umeng and Agate, and I'm going into the jungle, and I guess what I see as I'm going through and I'm trying to cross the river, I see a pile of batteries. A pile of batteries. As a child, I think I was about 10 years old. It's like, who would do such a thing? Who would do such a thing? It's despicable. It's disheartening. It's disgraceful that in this beautiful island we have some people out there so evil that they would just dump trash like that out in very pristine areas of our island. And I think increasing the fines and, you know, putting some teeth to the measure is a good thing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, on the amendment, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on the amendment? On the amendment, if no one else, and sponsor may close on the amendment, or he's waiving, are you going to speak on the amendment? Vice Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to rise and support this bill as authored by the good Senator Paris. I want to say that leadership begins with making sure that we take care of our beautiful island. And we have been truly blessed to have an island with sunny skies, sandy beaches, and just beautiful all the way around. And a lot of times when we and our colleagues go out there to support nonprofit organizations and other NPOs to help clean our islands. We get so disappointed and frustrated at the fact that we may clean on a weekend, and by the time Monday comes, it's trashed. And I remember one customs officer said to me, Dee's going to hit me for this, but she said, "Senator, we cleaned up the place, and not even 1 hour later, the trash came back again, and they added graffiti to it just to smirk us." And if this is what we need to do to put teeth and enforce teeth to that, then I don't have a problem standing behind it. So, Madam Speaker, I'm going to be brave enough to say I support this effort and thank the good author of environmental protection and safety to introduce this legislation. So I hope my colleagues support the efforts. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to rise and speak in support of this measure. Santa Mossy.
Santa Mossy. On the amendment, we're still on the amendment, on the JSA amendment. Senator Taitzui, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm speaking on the amendment for the legislation. I'd like to ask the author of the legislation, not the amendment, but the legislation. Has these fines been increased already? I mean, are we like tripling the fines now? So this goes to the author of the legislation.
Would the sponsor yield?
Yes, I do. So currently, it's by number of offenses. So the first offense is $500. The second offense, wait, sorry, let me double check 1 second.
Let me just say that question again, Madam Speaker, because I know the good author was distracted. The question is, when this legislation was produced, did you already increase the fines from what's currently in statute right now? Because my concern is, here we are now are making it from doubling it to tripling it, you know. So I just wanted to ask the good author.
With the sponsor yield.
Okay, so if I get the question correct, you're asking for the comparison of the introduced version
The one that's
the substitute version, or what the
so to reiterate again, when the bill was created, this legislation, did it already increase the current fines that are in statute currently?
Compared to the current fines.
Yeah.
Senator Perez, would you yield?
Yes, so the introduced version did increase it. So we were keeping, we basically kept the tiers, 1,000 for the first tier, 5,000 for the second tier, and 10,000 for the third. So we already increased it pretty significantly from what's currently in statute, which is 500, 750, and 1,000. So it's already a huge change.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, I introduced legislation when I first became a senator in the 30th Guam Legislature, and I increased the fines from throwing a cigarette butt out, especially during a fire season, to $1,000, and that was back in, 2008. I wholeheartedly support this legislation, but we need to be realistic too. I mean, if we're going to increase something, which we've done in this legislation compared to what it's currently in statute, we've done that. We don't need to be overzealous to, I know what the good author of the amendment is asking for, enough is enough with this littering. But we need to also be, more realistic. So I'm going to have to object to the amendment.
On the amendment, is there any other senator who'd like to be recognized? If not, then the response on the amendment, Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, so I'm really hesitant about, I appreciate the support of my colleagues to really deter illegal dumping. I think, our community is outraged and we need to do something about it. But I just want to also, I have a hesitation because this is something we worked on closely with EPA. And yeah, I just want to be, I feel like the increase is already large as it is. And I feel that, $10,000 is a huge amount of money as a deterrent, 5,000, 1,000 even. So these are huge amounts when you talk about our community, and so yeah, I respectfully don't support it.
All right. On the amendment, is there any other senator on the amendment? If not, sponsor may close on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was going to waive closing, but you know what? Let's think about it. You pay a fine for $200. What's the impact? It's been brought up. EPA is going to say if they dump something that's worth $200 fine, but you spill oil and everything else, and then you get a number of people. And exactly what one of my colleagues and several of my colleagues here has participated in litter cleaning, in cleaning up roads. Zamagahi, within less than 24 hours, almost the same amount of trash is back. And the beauty is when we did the cleanup, we had a dumpster, the trash left the compound. And all of a sudden the trash is back, another junk car. If we don't go after this hardcore, I'm going to keep a record of this, and that if I hear about it next year, hey, we need to increase it, I'm just going to look at them and say, and if you're part of the body then, ta'lu. But anyway, if my colleagues don't want to support the double, then let the vote decide that. I agree with the bill. I just wanted to double the fines. That's all. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, is there an objection? There's an objection. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Amendment fails. On the bill, Senator San Augustine, you still have the floor on the bill.
Madam Speaker, I'm in support of the bill. It's only to double the increase. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I give it less than a year. We're going to have problems with littering. There's problems today, and this is not even there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, any senator would like to be recognized? On the bill? Senator Barnett, on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to, again, quickly rise in support of the bill. It's a great bill, and yeah, I also applaud the efforts of my colleagues, in their zeal to hand out these hefty penalties. I think that's a great thing, and something that, who knows, maybe the senator from Gigo's right, we might be revisiting in the future. I don't know, near or far. But anyway, I do support the bill, and I'd ask the author to include me as a co-sponsor. Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Sidus Masi, Senator Barnett. On the bill? If not, sponsor may close on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the discussion with my colleagues and their support. Bill 171 updates our substantial littering fines to address and deter a growing and long-standing problem with illegal dumping. It increases fines that were discussed in close collaboration with Guam EPA, and which is on par or better to other jurisdictions across the U.S. The tiered fine system enables Guam EPA and other law enforcement officers to penalize violators based on the amount that is dumped. The larger the amount, the higher the penalty. Mayor Jesse Alex stated in his testimony, it is clear the mayors and vice mayors agree to stringent littering enforcement. And he added, for the sake of our environment and for future generations. Bill 171-37 can help make a difference by demanding more responsible actions regarding the disposal of solid waste with stronger fines. By comparison, properly disposed waste costs a fraction of what it is to illegally dump, which does not include the environmental health risks and the environmental health and the health of our people. Proper disposal will go a long way to protecting our environment, and this reflects our cultural values of an Anafat Malik, of caring for that which sustains us and the values of reciprocity and making good for our community. I humbly ask for my colleagues' support in strengthening our litter control laws to address illegal dumping and protect the beauty of our island home and the health of our people and environment. Tsutsui Masi.
Tsutsui Masi. Senator, on the bill.
Sorry, I forgot. If I can add co-sponsors. So Senator Barnett, Vice Speaker, Senator San Augustine, and all the senators. If there's, Senator Taitagui. Senator Taitagui, Speaker Terlahi, Senator Shelton, Senator San Nicolas, Senator Frank Blas, Senator, and everyone else. Thank you.
Clerk. The clerk has Barnett, Munya Barnes, San Augustine, Taitagui, Shelton, San Nicolas, Blas, and all.
Speaker, and you. And then everyone else if they agree to it.
You got it? All right. On that motion to add co-sponsors, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
And I move, I make the motion to move it to the third reading file.
All right, on that motion to move the bill as amended on the, by the committee, substituted on the floor, and further amended on the floor to the third reading, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Barnett?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's not a bill. I'd just like to make a motion, notwithstanding the House rules, to go back to motions with the intention of adding co-sponsors to my bill, which I forgot to do in my closing, if that's okay. Okay, so I'd like to...
What bill would you like to reconsider?
226-37.
Motion to reconsider Bill 226. Is there any objection? Okay. Seeing no objection, we're back on...
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion. 226. Thank you, Madam Speaker. To add Senator Tello Taitagui as a co-sponsor. And does anybody else wish to be added, please? Of course, Speaker Terlahi, Jesse, Senator Sabina, Senator Amanda, Vice Speaker, Senator Joe San Augustine, Senator San Nicolas, Senator Brown, Brown, did I say Senator Brown? Senator Blas? Thank you. Thank you. On that motion? Oh, sorry.
All right, on that motion to add co-sponsors, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries on Bill 226-37. Senator Barnett, motion to place it down.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to also motion to place the bill into the third reading file.
On the motion to place 226 as amended by committee, further amended on the floor to the third reading. Any objection?
No
Seeing
objection.
No objection, motion carries. All right, we're now on Bill 114, which requires committee of the whole. Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Tsutsui Masi, Madam Speaker, I move that we recess today's session and come back tomorrow in the committee of the whole at 9 a.m.
On that motion, is there any objection? If not, we will recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Recess.